Hi and welcome to my channel. It was a quiet Sunday morning in Atlanta, Georgia. I was in the kitchen, brewing coffee, when Clara, my wife of 10 years, breezed in, her phone clutched in her hand like it was some kind of lifeline. She was radiant as always, her auburn hair tied back in a messy bun, wearing the oversized sweatshirt she stole from my closet years ago. But there was a peculiar glint in her eyes, something that hinted at an idea bubbling beneath the surface. "You'll never guess what Lisa Maxwell posted on her blog this week," she said, scrolling furiously on her phone. Lisa Maxwell, an Instagram-famous lifestyle coach with 300,000 followers and a penchant for stirring up unconventional ideas. Clara practically worshipped the ground she vlogged on, taking every pearl of wisdom from Lisa as gospel. "Let me guess," I replied, sipping my coffee, "some life-changing advice about finding inner peace by reorganizing the spice rack." She ignored my jab. "No, this one's serious. She says that open marriages are the secret to saving relationships when they hit a rough patch." I choked on my coffee. "Open marriages? Like, you mean letting other people—" "Yes. Hear me out, okay?" Clara interrupted, her words tumbling out as fast as her enthusiasm could carry them. "Lisa says it's not about infidelity or sneaking around. It's about being honest with each other, communicating your needs, and reigniting the connection between you and your partner. Think of it as hitting the reset button on your marriage." I set my mug down, trying to process what she just said. "Clara, that sounds like a one-way ticket to disaster. Are you seriously suggesting we—" No, she cut me off again. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just saying, doesn't it make you think? Like, what if something like that could actually work for some couples? Lisa and her husband have been doing it for 2 years, and they've never been happier." I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "Clara, Lisa and her husband live in LA, where it's probably trendy to call your divorce attorney your marriage counselor. This is Atlanta. Real people don't do stuff like that." She sighed, a little exasperated. "I'm not saying we should do it. I just think sometimes relationships need a shake-up, something to get them out of the rut." The way she said it softly, carefully, made me pause. Was that what she thought we were? Stuck in a rut? Sure, life had become predictable over the years. We had 2 kids, Ethan, 8, and Sophie, 5, a mortgage and jobs that didn't leave much room for spontaneity. But wasn't that just life? "Clara," I said, lowering my voice, "is there something you're not telling me? Do you feel like we're in trouble?" Her gaze softened, and she reached for my hand. "No, it's not like that. I love you, and I love our life. Sometimes I wonder if there's more we could be doing to make it better." I wasn't sure what to say. The conversation fizzled into a strained silence, and she retreated to the living room with her phone, leaving me alone with my thoughts. As I watched her walk away, I couldn't help but wonder, was this just her latest fixation, like the juice cleanses and hot yoga classes, or was it something more? The week passed like a slow-moving storm, thick with unspoken tension. Clara didn't bring up Lisa Maxwell's open marriage sermon again, but I could tell it was still swimming around in her mind. She had a faraway look during dinner, her laughter at my dad's jokes feeling more polite than genuine. It all came to a head the following Saturday. Ethan and Sophie were at a friend's birthday party, giving us a rare afternoon to ourselves. Clara suggested brunch at our favorite spot, Magnolia Cafe, a quaint place tucked into Atlanta's Midtown district. The moment we sat down, she folded her hands across the table and hit me with it. "What would you think if we actually tried it? Just hypothetically." The question hung in the air like a bad smell. I put down my menu. "Tried what? The open marriage thing?" She nodded, her eyes scanning mine for a reaction. "Clara," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hypothetically speaking, I think it's a terrible idea. Relationships are built on trust, not inviting a third party into the mix." "That's exactly it," she argued, leaning forward. "Trust. Lisa says it's not about cheating, it's about being open, sharing everything, and building trust by exploring together." I let out a hollow laugh. "Sharing everything? You mean sharing each other? How exactly does that bring us closer?" "Look, I'm not saying we jump into anything crazy, but wouldn't you like to feel, I don't know, excited again?" Her voice faltered, and she looked away, fidgeting with the edge of the tablecloth. "We've been married for 10 years, and don't you think we've settled into this pattern where everything's just the same?" I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that our life wasn't just the same, but a part of me knew what she meant. I couldn't remember the last time we'd had a real date night, or a moment that didn't revolve around work schedules, school drop-offs, or whose turn it was to do the dishes. Still this felt like setting fire to the house to see if it would keep us warm. Clara, I said carefully, if you're feeling like something's missing, let's talk about it. Let's figure it out together. But this, I don't think it's the answer. Her shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked like she might cry. I just want us to be happy, you know? I want us to feel alive again. We could do that, I said, but we don't need to turn our marriage into a science experiment. She didn't respond. The waitress came to take our order, and Clara plastered on a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. By the time we got home, things fell off. I went to the backyard to mow the lawn, thinking some manual labor might clear my head. But as I pushed the mower over the uneven grass, I noticed Clara on the back porch, her phone to her ear, her voice low. Something about her tone stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't hear the words, but the softness of her voice and the slight smile on her lips sent a ripple of unease through me. Was she talking to Lisa? Or was it someone else? I finished mowing the lawn, but the seeds of doubt were already sprouting. The next morning, I decided to casually ask about the phone call. Who were you talking to yesterday? Oh, just Lisa, she said breezily, without looking up from her coffee. I nodded, pretending to believe her. But something in her body language, too casual, too dismissive, didn't sit right. That night, while Clara was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I picked up her phone. Her lock screen was a photo of Ethan and Sophie, as usual. But as I swiped through her notifications, one caught my eye, a text from a name I didn't recognize, Jayden. The message was innocuous enough. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, smiling face with smiling eyes. My stomach tightened. Jayden? Who the hell was Jayden? I stared at the screen, the name and message mocking me in their innocence. Jayden. It wasn't a name I recognized from Clara's work or social circle, and the smiling emoji added a layer of familiarity that set my teeth on edge. Clara's shower was still running upstairs. I put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, my hands trembling. 1,000 questions collided in my mind. Was Jayden a coworker? A friend? Or was this connected to the open marriage idea she floated? The next day, I decided to play it cool. If Clara was hiding something, I needed to know more before I confronted her. Sunday morning in our house was usually a relaxed affair. The kids were parked in front of the TV watching cartoons, and Clara was flipping pancakes in the kitchen. Busy week coming up? I asked casually, leaning against the counter. She glanced at me, her expression neutral. Pretty standard. Just work and the usual chaos. I decided to probe. I saw a text on your phone last night from someone named Jayden. Who's that? Her hand froze mid-flip, the pancake hovering above the pan for a split second before she recovered. Oh, Jayden? He's, someone from my fitness class. We've been chatting about some new routines. Her tone was off. Too rehearsed. Too quick. Fitness class? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. I didn't know you were still going to those. She hesitated, then forced a laugh. Yeah, I've been trying to get back into it. You know, stay in shape. It didn't add up. Clara hadn't mentioned fitness classes in months, and she hadn't been wearing her usual gym gear around the house. But I let it drop, pretending to accept her explanation. That afternoon, while Clara took Ethan to soccer practice and Sophie stayed upstairs playing with her dolls, I made my move. I grabbed Clara's laptop from the kitchen table and opened it. I knew I shouldn't have, but the doubt was eating me alive. If there was nothing to find, then I'd have my answer. Her email was already logged in. I scrolled through her inbox, scanning for anything unusual. Most of it was boring, work correspondence, promotional emails, PDA updates. But then I saw it. Subject. Looking forward to tomorrow. From Jayden R. I clicked it, my heart pounding. The email was brief but gut-wrenching. Hey Clara, can't wait to see you tomorrow. The last few times have been amazing. I feel like I can finally be myself with you. Let's meet at the usual spot, same time. Smiling face with smiling eyes, Jayden. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. The last few times? What the hell was this? Before I could think too much, I opened the sent folder and found a reply. Same here. You made me feel so alive lately. Can't wait to see you. XX Clara. I shut the laptop, my hands shaking. It was real. There was no mistaking it now. Clara was having some kind of thing with this guy, and the fact that she was still pushing the open marriage idea made it all the more disgusting. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, alternating between fury and heartbreak. But one thing was clear. I needed to know exactly what was going on. The next morning, I told Clara I had an early meeting at work. In reality, I left the house to follow her. I parked a few houses down and watched as she kissed the kids goodbye, grabbed her purse, and got into her car. My pulse raced as I followed her through the quiet suburban streets of Atlanta. Her destination? A boutique hotel on Peachtree Street. I parked across the street, watching as she stepped out of the car, checked her reflection in the window, and walked inside. A few minutes later, a man I didn't recognize, tall, fit, with a casual confidence, strode in after her. Jayden. It had to be him. I clenched the steering wheel, my knuckles white. This wasn't just a fitness buddy. This was betrayal. And now, I had the proof. I wasn't sure what my next move would be, but one thing was certain. Clara had no idea what was coming. I stayed in my car, heart pounding, trying to piece together what to do next. I couldn't just storm into the hotel. That would make me look insane. But the thought of Clara and this Jayden guy together in some boutique room made my blood boil. I glanced at the hotel entrance again, debating. After a few agonizing minutes, I noticed a woman stepping out of the building. Someone I assumed was an employee, judging by her uniform. Inspiration struck. I got out of my car and hurried over. "Excuse me," I said, feigning concern. "I think my wife forgot her phone. She just checked in Clara Dempsey. Room number?" The woman frowned, wary. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out room numbers." Of course, I said quickly, slipping her a folded $20 bill. "It's just that it's really important. Family emergency." She hesitated, her eyes darting between me and the bill. Finally, she sighed. "Room 412. "Thank you," I said, turning to leave before she could change her mind. I slipped into the hotel, keeping my head low. The lobby was chic and minimalist, with soft lighting and jazz music playing faintly. Nobody stopped me as I made my way to the elevator. Room 412. The ride up felt like an eternity. My mind raced with possibilities. What if I found them in bed together? What if I confronted them, and Clara tried to twist it into something else? When the elevator dinged, I stepped out into the fourth-floor hallway, my shoes muffled by the thick carpet. Room 412 was at the end of the corridor. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body on high alert. I stood outside the door, straining to hear. At first, there was nothing, just the hum of the air conditioning. Then I heard muffled voices, laughter, and a man's deep tone blending with Clara's familiar laugh. It was like a knife to the gut. I didn't know what to do. Barging in felt reckless, but walking away felt weak. I needed proof, something concrete to confront her with. I left the hotel, my chest heaving with anger and betrayal. Back in my car, I called my friend Nate. Nate was an ex-cop turned private investigator, the kind of guy who didn't ask too many questions. "Nate," I said when he picked up, my voice tight. "I need your help. It's about Clara." There was a pause on the other end. "What's going on?" "I think she's cheating." "No, scratch that. I know she's cheating, but I need proof. Something she can't deny." "Say no more," Nate replied. "Text me the details. I'll tailor and get what you need." Over the next few days, Nate worked fast. He followed Clara to another lunch meeting with Jayden and took photos of them walking hand in hand, sharing what looked like a private joke. Another time, he caught them at a cozy Italian restaurant, sitting close enough to touch, oblivious to the world around them. And then there was the smoking gun. Nate sent me a short video. It showed Clara and Jayden at the same boutique hotel, entering room 412 together. The timestamp was from yesterday. It was undeniable. That night, I couldn't bring myself to look at Clara as we sat across from each other at the dinner table. She talked about her day, how she'd grabbed lunch with Lisa and stopped by the gym for a quick workout. Lies. Every word of it. When dinner was over and the kids had gone to bed, Clara poured herself a glass of wine and settled on the couch. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice cold. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "What's up?" I held up my phone, showing her one of Nate's photos, a crystal-clear shot of her and Jayden at the hotel. Her face drained of color. "Who the hell is Jayden?" I demanded, my voice sharp. Clara's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. It's not what it looks like," she stammered. "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like," I snapped. "Do not insult me by lying again." Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. She'd made her choices. I wanted to tell you, she said, her voice trembling. I just didn't know how. You wanted to tell me? I barked out a bitter laugh. What? Before or after your next lunch meeting? You don't even have the decency to admit what you've done, do you? She broke down, tears streaming down her face. I was lonely, okay? I needed something. You needed something, I repeated, my voice flat. And instead of talking to me, you turned to him. Her silence was all the answer I needed. That night, I slept in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, the weight of her betrayal crushing me. I didn't know what the next step would be, but I knew one thing for sure. The woman I thought I knew was gone. The morning after our confrontation, Clara acted like a ghost of herself. Her usual routine, making the kids breakfast, packing their lunches, humming to herself, was replaced with silence. Ethan and Sophie picked up on the tension, their playful chatter falling flat as Clara avoided my gaze. When the kids were finally out the door and on their way to school, she turned to me. We need to talk, she said softly. No, I replied, my voice sharp. You need to listen. Clara flinched, but didn't argue. I want the truth, Clara. All of it. I demanded. No lies, no excuses. Who is Jayden? How long has this been going on? She hesitated, her eyes darting to the floor. He's someone I met at the gym, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. It started a few months ago. We just talked at first, but then it got more serious. Serious? I repeated, my temper barely in check. How serious are we talking here? Is this, let's book a hotel room every week, serious? Or are we at let's plan a future together? It wasn't supposed to be anything, she said, her voice cracking. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. I interrupted. You didn't think about me or the kids when you snuck around with him. Did you? Did you even consider what this would do to us? Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry. I was lost, and he made me feel alive. I can't explain it. Try. I snapped. She took a deep breath, struggling to compose herself. I felt invisible, like I was just existing. Jayden listened. He paid attention to me in a way I hadn't felt in years. Her words stung, but I refused to let her turn this into a sob story about her feelings. And you thought the solution was to cheat? I said coldly. To drag someone else into our marriage? I didn't plan for it to happen, she insisted. Of course not, I shot back. But you planned the hotel meetups. You planned the lies. You planned to keep this going behind my back. Clara buried her face in her hands, sobbing. But I didn't care. The trust we'd built over a decade of marriage had been shattered, and I couldn't see a way to put it back together. I left the house and spent the day driving aimlessly around Atlanta. Memories of our life together, our wedding day, the births of Ethan and Sophie, the countless little moments, played like a cruel slideshow in my mind. Eventually, I ended up at Nate's office. He welcomed me in without hesitation, handing me a folder. It's all here, he said. Photos, timestamps, the works. You've got more than enough if you want to take this to court. I nodded, flipping through the evidence. Each image felt like a stab to the chest, but I needed to see it. I needed the pain to fuel what came next. That evening, I returned home to find Clara sitting at the dining table, a glass of wine in front of her. I want to fix this, she said the moment I walked in. I laughed bitterly. Fix this? Clara, you're not asking me to patch up a leaky pipe. You burned down the whole damn house. I'll do anything, she pleaded. Therapy, counseling, whatever it takes. Just don't give up on us. You already gave up? I replied. When you decided he was worth more than what we have. She broke down again, but her tears no longer moved me. The next few weeks were a blur of tense conversations, sleepless nights, and agonizing decisions. Clara kept insisting she wanted to save our marriage, but every time I looked at her, all I could see was betrayal. One evening, after the kids were asleep, I laid it all out. I've spoken to a lawyer, I told her. Her face paled. You're divorcing me? Clara, you made your choice, I said firmly. And now, I'm making mine. The kids and I deserve better than this. Her lip trembled, but she didn't argue. She knew she'd lost. I filed for divorce the next day, and the process began. Clara moved into a small apartment nearby, and we worked out a custody arrangement for Ethan and Sophie. They took the news hard, but I did everything I could to reassure them they were loved. As for Clara, she reached out occasionally, sending long emails about how sorry she was, how much she missed our family, how she'd do anything to make things right. I never replied. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Life didn't magically get easier, but it did get clearer. I focused on the kids, on rebuilding a life that didn't include deception and betrayal. And as time went on, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: peace. I should have known Clara wouldn't let things end cleanly. The initial weeks after the divorce filing were relatively quiet, apart from the occasional passive-aggressive email or text. But it didn't take long for her frustration to boil over into something more vindictive. It started subtly. One afternoon, I received a call from my boss, Marcus. "Hey, Alan," he said cautiously. "Is everything okay at home?" My stomach sank. "Why do you ask?" "Well," Marcus hesitated. "I got a strange email this morning. It was anonymous, but it detailed some personal stuff about your marriage, your ex, and even mentioned an affair." My grip on the phone tightened. "What did it say exactly?" "It accused you of being unfaithful first," Marcus replied. "Said you'd been neglecting your family and emotionally abusing your wife. The sender implied you're not someone we should trust in a leadership role." My blood boiled. "You don't believe that, do you?" "Of course not," Marcus said quickly. "But I thought you should know. Whoever sent this knows a lot about you." I knew exactly who it was. That evening, I called Clara. "You've sunk to emailing my boss now?" I demanded the moment she picked up. "Don't you dare accuse me of that," she shot back, her voice laced with mock indignation. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the crap, Clara," I growled. "You think I don't recognize your handiwork? You're mad because I won't let you control me anymore, and now you're trying to wreck my career." She laughed bitterly. "You think you're so perfect, Alan. You act like you're the victim here, but you're not innocent. You neglected me for years, and now you're playing the martyr." "Neglected you?" I shouted. "I worked my ass off to provide for this family while you were sneaking around with Jayden. Don't you dare try to spin this on me. You're going to regret leaving me," she hissed before hanging up. Her words hung in the air like a dark cloud. The next few weeks were a barrage of calculated strikes. Clara wasn't content with just targeting my career. She aimed for my reputation, my relationships, and even my parenting. She started posting cryptic updates on social media, vague enough to avoid legal repercussions, but clear enough to paint me as the villain. Some men will destroy their family just to stroke their ego. Funny how someone who preached loyalty was the first to betray. Friends and family started reaching out, asking what was going on. I spent countless hours explaining the truth, but the damage was done. Clara had successfully planted seeds of doubt. Then came the custody battle. I'd assumed we'd stick to the arrangement we'd agreed on. Shared custody with the kids alternating weeks between our homes. But Clara filed a motion to revise the terms, claiming I was an unfit parent. In court, her lawyer painted a picture of me as an absent, overworked father who prioritized his job over his children. Clara sat there, crocodile tears streaming down her face, describing how I had emotionally distanced myself from the family long before her affair. When my lawyer presented evidence of her infidelity and erratic behavior, Clara flipped the narrative. "I only strayed because I felt so alone," she said, her voice trembling. "I made a mistake, but I did it because I was desperate for love and attention." Alan refused to give me either. Her performance was Oscar-worthy. The judge didn't rule entirely in her favor, but Clara managed to secure primary custody, with me relegated to weekends and alternating holidays. Ethan and Sophie were devastated, but Clara spun it as though it was my fault. "Your dad just doesn't have the time for you like I do," she told them, poisoning their perception of me little by little. The final blow came when I received a letter from the IRS. Clara had reported me for tax fraud. Apparently, she'd been keeping meticulous records of every financial decision I'd made during our marriage, highlighting anything that could remotely look suspicious. It was a nightmare to untangle, costing me thousands in legal and accounting fees. Through it all, I refused to stoop to her level. I documented everything, consulted my lawyer, and focused on being the best dad I could be during my limited time with Ethan and Sophie. But I wasn't about to let Clara walk away unscathed. I reached out to Nate again, explaining the situation. "I need to know what she's up to." I told him, "If she wants to play dirty, I'll play smarter." Nate didn't disappoint. Within weeks, he uncovered something Clara hadn't anticipated. Jayden wasn't just her lover. He was her accomplice in a series of financial scams she'd been running through her freelance consulting business. Armed with this information, I went back to court. The day Clara realized I had her cornered was one I'd never forget. Her smug confidence crumbled as my lawyer laid out the evidence, detailing how her actions had jeopardized not just her finances, but also her fitness as a parent. The judge's decision was swift. I was awarded primary custody, and Clara was ordered to pay restitution for the legal and financial chaos she'd caused. As she left the courtroom, she shot me a venomous glare. "You'll regret this, Alan," she spat. But for the first time in months, I felt nothing but satisfaction. It had been a year since the court battle ended, and life was finally beginning to settle down. With Ethan and Sophie living with me full-time, I focused on creating a stable, loving environment for them. My relationship with Clara was reduced to cold, utilitarian exchanges about the kids, and honestly, that was just fine with me. What I didn't expect was to meet someone like Ellie. Ellie was 28, sharp, confident, and vibrant in a way that made me remember what it felt like to be alive. We met at a charity fundraiser I attended reluctantly, at the insistence of my friend Nate. I was hovering near the bar, nursing a whiskey, when she introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Ellie," she said, extending a hand. "I'm pretty sure you've been stuck in this corner long enough to need a rescue." I laughed, surprised by her boldness. "Alan," I replied, shaking her hand. "And you're not wrong." We hit it off immediately, spending the rest of the evening talking about everything from books to travel to the trials of navigating Atlanta traffic. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers, and within a week, we were officially dating. Ellie was a breath of fresh air. She didn't carry the weight of cynicism or manipulation that Clara had perfected. She was ambitious, running her own PR firm, and had a knack for finding humor in even the most mundane situations. Ethan and Sophie adored her too. Ellie didn't try to replace their mother. Instead, she focused on being a supportive friend to them. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a shot at happiness. Of course, Clara wasn't thrilled. The first time she saw Ellie picking up the kids from school with me, her reaction was immediate. Her eyes narrowed, and her lips curled into a sneer. "So this is your little girlfriend?" she said loudly, making sure everyone in the parking lot could hear. Ellie handled it with grace, simply smiling and saying, "Nice to meet you, Clara." Clara, however, wasn't done. The next week, rumors started swirling. Parents at school began avoiding me, their polite smiles turning into guarded nods. I overheard whispers about inappropriate behavior and poor judgment. It wasn't long before Nate called me, his tone serious. "Alan, you need to see this." He sent me a link to a social media post from Clara. In it, she detailed how I was dating a much younger woman and exposing the kids to an unstable environment. She painted Ellie as a gold digger, implying that she was using me for money and attention. The comments were brutal. Clara's friends chimed in, calling me selfish and irresponsible. A few even suggested Ellie must be a bad influence on Ethan and Sophie. Ellie saw the post, of course. She brushed it off with a laugh, saying, "If this is the worst she's got, she's not very creative." But I could see it bothered her. I decided to confront Clara. "Is this really what you've sunk to?" I asked when I dropped the kids off at her apartment. She crossed her arms, feigning innocence. "What are you talking about?" "The post, Clara. Slandering me and Ellie online. What's your goal here?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "My goal? To protect my kids from your midlife crisis fling. That's what? You mean the woman who's been nothing but kind to them?" I shot back. "Or are you just mad that I've moved on and found someone who actually respects me?" Clara's face turned red. "You're embarrassing yourself, Alan. Everyone sees it." "No, Clara," I said, my voice firm. "Everyone sees you. Desperate, bitter, and unable to let go. If you keep this up, you're only going to alienate the kids further." Her smirk faltered for a split second, but she recovered quickly. "We'll see about that," she said, slamming the door in my face. The slander didn't stop there. Clara reached out to my boss again, this time claiming Ellie had a troubled past that could reflect poorly on the company. She sent an anonymous email to Ethan's school, suggesting Ellie was inappropriate around children. It was exhausting, but Ellie stood by me through it all, her confidence unshaken. "We'll get through this," she told me one night, her hand resting on mine. She's throwing tantrums because she knows she can't win. Eventually, Clara's antics backfired. Nate uncovered proof that she had hired a friend to write defamatory posts about Ellie on local forums. When we presented this to the school board and my company's HR department, they dismissed her claims entirely. More importantly, Ethan and Sophie began to see through her lies. One night, Ethan came to me, his face serious. "Dad, why does Mom hate Ellie so much?" I paused, unsure how much to say. Sometimes, when people are unhappy, they take it out on others. But that doesn't make it okay. Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Well, I like Ellie. She makes you happy." Hearing that made every battle worth it. Clara's attempts to ruin us only strengthened my resolve. Ellie and I continued to grow closer, proving that no amount of bitterness could dim the light of a new beginning. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. New cheating wife stories tomorrow. Goodbye.